What just erupted inside the British royal family is reportedly the ugliest scandal this institution has faced in decades. According to reports, Camilla's son, Tom Parker Bowles, allegedly walked straight into King Charles's most private estate and turned it into his own personal cash machine, running a commercial venture through royal property and pulling out serious money while he did it. And when Princess Anne reportedly discovered what was happening, she did not whisper about it behind closed doors. She allegedly went straight to her lawyers and launched legal action. Then sources say Camilla came for Anne. What followed was reportedly not a quiet family disagreement, but a brutal court war that dragged the monarchy's most protected secrets into the open. And nobody inside those walls was ready for where it went. So what exactly did Tom do, and why did it strike at the very heart of this family? Stay with me, because the truth here is far darker than the headlines. It reportedly began before dawn, when trucks rolled quietly through the gates of Balmoral Castle, production vehicles, catering vans, and crates of lighting equipment moving through the darkness onto the grounds of the most private royal residence in Britain. The crew had reportedly been hired, briefed, and paid for what they believed was a fully legitimate project. The man who sent them had assured them every detail of their access was officially authorized. That man was reportedly Tom Parker Bowles, and according to reports, the authorization he promised existed nowhere except inside his own fabricated paperwork. Tom had allegedly approached a production company with a glossy food and travel documentary concept built around filming inside Britain's most exclusive aristocratic estates, and the location that made it irresistible to investors was Balmoral itself. He reportedly sat across from them and claimed with total confidence that as the son of Queen Camilla, he held the power to open those doors. And the money allegedly began moving almost instantly, with hundreds of thousands of pounds flowing into his personal accounts for access he had no right to sell. But Balmoral was reportedly only the beginning, so just how far did this scheme stretch? According to reports, Tom had not stopped at one castle. He had allegedly pitched the same fraudulent access to Sandringham and Windsor to other parties, signing multiple contracts with multiple companies, all built on the same foundation of lies about authority he never possessed. And to keep anyone from asking dangerous questions before filming Wrapped, he reportedly went even further than verbal promises. He allegedly created forged documents, fake official papers designed to look exactly like genuine royal authorization, and produced them whenever doubts threatened to surface. What Tom reportedly never calculated and could never have prepared for was Princess Anne arriving at Balmoral completely unannounced on the very day his crew was setting up inside the castle. When she walked through those doors, the sight reportedly hit her like a physical blow. A full commercial production had allegedly been installed in the historic dining room, lighting rigs towering over the furniture, crew moving through the space, catering stations laid out as though this were any ordinary filming location. But what rose inside Anne reportedly went somewhere far deeper than the cold anger of a property violation. So what made this moment cut her to the bone? Queen Elizabeth II had reportedly died inside that very castle. On September 8, 2022, Anne had sat at her mother's bedside in those rooms and watched the most important person in her life take her final breath. The castle had held her mother's coffin while a family and a nation said goodbye. And now, according to reports, a hired film crew was repositioning furniture and adjusting lights in that sacred space because Camilla's son had allegedly sold them access without asking a single member of the family. Staff who witnessed Anne's reaction reportedly said she was physically shaking, the fury pouring off her unlike anything they had ever seen from her. She allegedly ordered the production halted on the spot, then commanded every crew member and every piece of equipment off the property within the hour. The confrontation reportedly grew so heated that security had to physically step in, and Tom? He was reportedly nowhere to be found, having sent the team ahead while he stayed behind in London, so confident his scheme would go undetected that he never thought he needed to be there. That decision, sources suggest, would become one of the most catastrophic of his life, because Anne was not finished, so who did she call next? Anne reportedly contacted King Charles directly to ask whether he had authorized any part of it. Charles was allegedly caught completely off guard, telling her he had given no such permission and that this was the very first he had heard of any filming on royal property. He reportedly sounded embarrassed and shaken, and then allegedly called the royal legal team and ordered a full investigation into every contract Tom had signed, every payment he had received, and every claim he had made about his authority. And what those lawyers reportedly uncovered was far worse than Anne had imagined, because this was not the start of Tom's story. It was simply the first time someone caught him in the act. They had reportedly expected to find a single lapse in judgment. Instead, they allegedly uncovered a carefully built operation that had been running for years, resting entirely on one enormously profitable suggestion, that being Camilla's son gave Tom authority inside the royal family. But to understand how he reached the point of sending crews into Balmoral, you reportedly have to go back to 1919, the year the world first glimpsed who Tom truly was beneath the polished food critic image. What happened back then, according to reports, at 24 and working as a junior film publicist at the Cannes Film Festival, Tom was caught by an undercover reporter in a conversation that exploded across British front pages. He had allegedly spoken openly about arranging a cocaine supply and described visiting a drug den regularly. When investigators dug deeper, they reportedly found he had spent 3 years at Oxford procuring and supplying drugs to his social circle. Camilla was reportedly devastated, and Charles allegedly called Tom directly, told him he had been a fool, and cut off his access to a 16-year-old Prince William. What was never made public, according to reports, was that palace officials had formally discussed whether Tom posed a genuine safeguarding risk to the future king, a finding that was reportedly suppressed as Charles protected his stepson, and the story faded. The years that followed reportedly brought their own darkness: a bitter divorce in 2018 and the loss of his partner Alice to cancer in 2021, after which sources say he threw himself back into his commercial world with an alarming recklessness, leaning on his royal connection harder than ever. So what exactly had he been leaning on it to do? What investigators reportedly mapped was a pattern hiding in plain sight for years. Restaurant owners allegedly came forward describing pressure to hand Tom free meals and special treatment, fearing the unspoken consequences of refusing the Queen Consort's son. Corporate sponsors had reportedly been paying him rates far beyond his actual market value, buying nothing but proximity to the crown. Publishers were allegedly paying a royal premium for cookbooks that his professional standing alone could never justify. He had reportedly used royal letterhead and palace communication channels for personal business and stuffed his marketing materials with photos alongside Camilla, manufacturing the powerful and entirely false impression of an ongoing royal endorsement no one had ever granted. And there was reportedly another pressure building from a different direction entirely. Prince William had allegedly made it known through private channels that he would not attend Christmas at Sandringham if Tom was present, a hostility reportedly stretching back to those 1995 safeguarding discussions. When the full Balmoral scheme came to light, William's response was reportedly not shock but cold, focused fury, translating into private pressure on Charles to step aside and let Anne pursue the case. But when news of the investigation's full scope reached Camilla, she reportedly did not wait quietly. What she did next allegedly threatened to tear the family apart. When Camilla reportedly grasped the scale of what her son had done and how determined Anne was to drag it into open court, something allegedly shifted in her from worry into full combat. Her first move was reportedly to go straight to Charles, arguing that prosecuting Tom would unleash a media storm more damaging than anything he had done. But Anne reportedly saw straight through it, recognizing a mother using the monarchy as a shield for a son who had earned every consequence coming to him. The confrontation between the two women was reportedly no restrained royal disagreement. Staff allegedly heard raised voices through the walls of the private meeting room, with Anne refusing to budge and Camilla insisting family loyalty and public image had to come first. When that failed, Camilla reportedly went around Anne and contacted the legal team directly, trying to shut the investigation down, leaving everyone uncertain whether a Queen Consort could override the Princess Royal. The lawyers reportedly concluded their duty was to the crown and pressed on, but Camilla's attempt was noted and never forgotten. She then allegedly turned to palace staff who had witnessed it all, reportedly suggesting their loyalty meant standing behind Tom rather than cooperating, a strategy that reportedly collapsed when several longtime employees went quietly to Anne. But why did this fight between two women run so impossibly deep? The roots reportedly stretch back decades. When Charles married Camilla in 2005, Queen Elizabeth reportedly had a formal document prepared confirming Anne would never be required to curtsy to Camilla, a document Anne herself had reportedly requested. And those feelings allegedly trace back to the early 1970s, when Camilla's on-and-off boyfriend Andrew Parker Bowles was simultaneously involved with Anne before he chose Camilla and married her in 1973, creating what one historian reportedly called a bizarre love rectangle pulling in both of the Queen's eldest children. That old humiliation, sources suggest, had never fully healed in Anne, simply buried beneath decades of duty. So when she faced Camilla over Tom, she was reportedly not only the Princess Royal defending an institution, but a woman carrying 30 years of private pain. And then the war moved into the courts, where it reportedly got far messier and far more revealing about the broken machinery beneath the monarchy. Because Tom's lawyers had reportedly spotted one devastating problem from the very first day, Balmoral reportedly is not part of the Crown estate. It is the monarch's personal private property, owned personally by the king, with no public institutional framework around it. And that distinction reportedly carried enormous weight because it left genuinely unclear who even had legal standing to bring charges over what happened inside its walls. Tom's lawyers reportedly seized on it, arguing only Charles, as sole private owner, could authorize a prosecution. And Charles, reportedly trapped between his furious sister and his desperate wife, allegedly refused to take any clear position at all. He reportedly did not act, did not authorize, issued no condemnation, attempting to float in neutral space and in doing so, allegedly handing Tom's defense the oxygen it needed. Anne's team reportedly fought back hard, insisting the fraud was committed through real contracts and real money in the ordinary commercial world, fully subject to normal law, regardless of which property sat at the center. Forgery was a crime. Collecting large sums through false pretenses was a crime. Collecting large sums through false pretenses was a crime. But Tom's lawyers were reportedly far from finished, allegedly challenging Anne's standing, the admissibility of evidence, and subpoenaing decades of records hunting for any precedent of informal royal access. And the witnesses became a battlefield of their own, some reportedly requiring subpoenas, others developing convenient memory gaps under pressure. What this entire episode reportedly tore open was something far larger than one man's documentary scheme. According to commentators, the monarchy has no independent mechanism to hold its own members or their connections genuinely accountable, no tribunal beyond the reach of royal politics, no process that cannot be stalled by the people at the top. When royals are divided, as Charles and Anne reportedly were, the whole system seizes up and drifts towards silence. Anne reportedly understood this better than anyone, paying her own legal costs throughout so Tom's lawyers could never claim she was weaponizing royal resources. Taking Tom to court was reportedly not just one property owner seeking justice. It was allegedly a direct challenge to the unwritten agreement that has held the monarchy together for centuries, that royal scandals belong inside the family and never become public legal record. If Anne wins, sources say she rewrites that agreement forever, proving proximity to the crown is no shield. If the machinery grinds the case into silence, it reportedly confirms something darker, that the protection has always held and always will for the right people. Either way, the damage is reportedly permanent. And Anne, the woman who sat at her mother's bedside as Queen Elizabeth drew her last breath inside that castle, is reportedly still standing, still fighting, and according to sources, she is not done yet. So will Anne shatter that centuries-old shield, or will the system close ranks and bury it all? Tell me what you think in the comments, and if you want the next chapter of this unfolding story, stay close. This is Royal Pulse, where whispers around the crown come to light.